everybody. This is a welcome from Cyber Media and Voice and Data. And I have with me an esteemed set of panel colleagues of mine, Mr. Jagbir Singh, CTO of Vodafone, Mr. Mathangi Sandilya, Global Technology Lead and Managing Director, Accenture, and Mr. Sandeep, Arora, Managing Director of Customer Experience at CISCO. So the topic is, of course, one of the most advanced topics in technology, which we are now, everybody is delving with. We are in just the beginnings of it. And how to cope with the new cloud native era, mobile cloud architecture and modules. That is a module which that is a discussion we'll have in this module. So basically how to cope with it, how cloud ready and cloud friendly environments. The industry has made a big shift, especially after the cloud native strengths. And what the pandemic has done is the pandemic has speeded up everything. What could have taken 2 or 3 years to happen has happened in a couple of months in almost every sphere of human endeavor and in many, many areas. To give you an example, which is a very stark example, is the entertainment industry itself. You know, we used to go to movie halls and see movies. People don't go, but that doesn't mean we don't get entertained ourselves. We probably see more movies now at home via the many OTT platforms and movies and serials which are happening via the cloud. So a lot of that is just one example. But similarly, let's say if you take education, a lot of universities and colleges, our students are still not coming, and they have been advised to study from home, take exams from home, etc., etc. So now the first question which arises is that there are a couple of questions which we will discuss. The first question that arises is that what happens to the legacy system? To take my own example, what happens to all the cinema halls and many new cinema halls which were planned to be built? What happens to all these fancy college buildings and all that, and we were setting up new departments, etc., etc. That just as an example. Obviously, the topic in hand is different, so you would naturally give technological examples. The second and the most important thing, I think, the second question, in my opinion, is the most important question. And I would have been happy if Voice and Data had in the panel included a CHRO, because the biggest problem today, and all of you would know because you're in operating large systems, the biggest problem is the skill pool, the culture of the cloud, and the interactions in the cloud, the complete virtualization environment, which will happen across both the B2B and the B2C domains. So how to create the talent pool, the skills required, and the orientation of the entire team to this. Because we are interested, I'm also an engineer by education from IIT Kharagpur. We are interested to go somewhere, fix a machine, touch some, fix the wires and all that. And we are very happy, I've done it, But it's not that. Now everything you have to do from far away. Your engineers who are not well trained are sitting in Chennai, you're sitting in Delhi and Bombay. And do you use augmented reality tools, mixed reality tools? How do you make him understand what's inside the turbine or inside the whatever machinery he's supposed to fix? The third question, should we create captive strengths or find solutions outside? Very important question. And is the private or the public or the hybrid or the multi-cloud debate relevant for the enterprises aspiring to go cloud native? This is a debate which will go on for a long time, because you have data security and many other issues related with this important question. So how I would do is, I would request, without any further ado, I would request each of the panel members, I would go one by one, quickly introduce yourself. Of course, all of you are well known in the industry. And then you could take up any or one of the questions and start your comments. We'll do a first round like this, and in the second round, we'll do it kind of more open in terms of topic wise. So with that, may I request Mr. Jagbir Singh, CTO of Vodafone, to give his opening remarks, please.
Thank you very much, sir, and thanks to Cyber Media and Voice and Data. I think if we go systematically, maybe like the question one in terms of the cloud, how it's going to impact, and how we can get ourselves adapt to the cloud environment. I think I'll go on that. So let me speak. My name is Jagbir Singh. I'm working as CTO for Vodafone Idea, and earlier I think I've been the CTO for the Reliance Jio. Before that, CTO for the Bharti Airtel. So that's my introduction. So coming back to the topic, I think from the telco viewpoint, I'll speak right now, and for sure then we'll go to the other areas. So see, if you see, like we have moved from the bare metal, then we moved to the virtualization, we moved to the cloudification, we are talking about the cloud native. So I think things are moving, and at the same time, coming to the movement or the adoption by the telcos. So telcos actually, one is for their own requirement. Second is the telco also serve the consumer and enterprise. And third is actually both telco and the enterprise. They need actually the digital transformation which is happening in every area. So they need to support and use the infrastructure which is the most efficient to support the digital transformation for themselves as well as for their enterprise customers. Now, keeping this in mind, I think cloud becomes very handy. So cloud, I take cloud as an enabler. It's like sort of the tool or the most efficient way to deploy the workloads of telcos, core networks, IT networks, or enterprise applications or their workloads. And this, because the cloud allows you to have the flexibility, security, and at the same time, the scalability which is available with the cloud. At the same time, I think we need to also see that going forward, everything is becoming software controlled, whereby we say that artificial intelligence, machine learning has to be there in each and every area. So if you have the workloads deployed using the cloud, I think it becomes easy to do the data analytics using the AI/ML on the cloud infrastructure to get the more insights about your workloads, application services, or the structured and unstructured data, whatever we have actually, which is running on the cloud. Therefore, I think having the cloud is a very good thing for the telco as well as for the enterprise. At the same time, now coming, the question is more of whether it's going to be bare metal, going to be virtual machines, going to be cloud-based, cloudification, or the cloud native. I think I would say from our point of view, it's going to be coexistence for some time. But the good news is slowly, the IT hardware keep getting, out of service, out of support, and out of, end of life. So when we move towards any new deployment, we of course will be moving toward the cloudification, everything on the cloud. And at the same time, I think as and when the application which needs a cloud native kind of support, we will move in that direction. But cloud native, I would say, is for many telco applications, still is a beginning. It's a long way to go. So I think my final view will be that whether it's a telco or enterprise, is going to be mix of virtual machines, VMs, cloudifications, normal clouds, and going forward, when the 5G comes, edge computing comes, become the reality, or the industrial IoT, I think these applications will need a cloud native kind of infrastructure, which will also happen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jagbir. CTO, you are CTO of Vodafone Idea. I just mentioned Vodafone, I'm sorry. By the way, many years back, I was the CMO of Idea Cellular way back in 2002. It's my kind of ex-company. So coming now to, I fully agree with all the views which you said, particularly that once the 5G comes in, you will have to have 5G will miscegenate many new technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality. A lot of these things will get included in that space. So with that, I'd like to request Ms. Mathangi Sandilya, Global Technology Lead and Managing Director, Accenture, to give the open remarks. And you could choose any question you like. after your introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Really glad that I'm part of this esteemed panel discussion today. You've already introduced me, so I won't take too much time there. I lead the global technology for comms and media within Accenture. And what we do is work with clients in this industry. And then, of course, I'm responsible for the technology work that we do with them. I mean, I'll probably pick the second question. As you said, that's one of the most important thing, and I think it's also something that that requires a long-standing correction in the way we are operating today, because it's not just about the skill pool, it's not about just the people, but also how the culture itself has to change in order for us to enable what's the latest and greatest that's in cloud-native technologies. I mean, there are advantages with some of these companies who are born cloud-native, and hence they already come with that culture. So what we require to take us from point A to point B is probably one, acknowledgement that we need to change our processes and also the organizations that we have. I mean, and I also would like to take a point that Mr. Jagbir just pointed to around virtualization of networks, for example. I mean, gone are the days where we can keep the network organization outside of the IT organization and think of it as two different silos, right? I mean, it's become now a part of the same pool. We need to think of network also as a software component now with this virtualized network, which then means you need to change the way you're organized, which also means that you know, think about it very differently, and hence you also need to look at different skills if we want to make the most of this new paradigm of technology. So I think the focus on people and skills should include an organizational element to it, which means there is a big change management also that needs to be considered. And it's not going to be a simple move. So as long as you acknowledge and act on it in a very holistic manner, I think it's doable. And all of us from services industries have been doing that over the past few years, because we're embracing newer methods and ways of working like agile, and that's really what many of you have also been doing in the industry. So it's a question of taking it more holistically and also in a very larger scale, so that you can take along your people who have the core knowledge, of what needs to be done in this industry, and also take them into the new. So I think that's the most critical part.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I would now request Mr. Sandeep Arora, Managing Director, Customer Experience at CISCO, to give his opening remarks. Customer experience at the end of the day is the most important thing. We are all guided in marketing, particularly guided by that. And the customer experience both in the B2B interface and the B2C interface. And one of the things which I was discussing in the earlier technology panel was that a lot of consumption will take place in the mobile interface, even in B2B situation. So you could have senior people like you are traveling. Okay, today you're not traveling so much, but you'll be traveling, and you may want to check a lot of things on the with your key customers and your own department, and you would probably punch it in your mobile and see it. So the mobile handsets, which are like computers now, will get even more awesome. And a lot of experience will therefore be on a very small screen because you are outside. I mean, even in the B2C, of course, in a vast country like India, a lot of people at certain types of towns and certain socioeconomic segments don't have a laptop or don't have a desktop. Their entire experience, whether it is the financial services, whether it is entertainment, whether it is any emergency services, education, a lot of it is on the mobile interface. So I think, so these are the new sort of elements which will leap forward more. And with 5G coming in, of course, it'll take maybe 1 or 2 years before it actually sees the light of the day. But with the 5G coming in and 5G handsets coming in, the experience will become something which everybody will use to in really the mobile environment. Because at the end of the day, when you're sitting in your office for a large desktop or a laptop, you're actually, in a sense, not in the mobile environment. So I'm sorry for this thing. So over to you, Mr. Arora.
Hey, thanks, Sukanta, for hosting us all. I might also just say, welcome, Mr. Jagbir Singh. After a long time, in your third venture of being a CTO, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, to talk to you. So welcome, and looking forward again to work in your new avatar. I'm sure the ruthless execution which you believe in, you will make India grow again. So welcome back in any of time. Coming back to the topic, and I think it's a very apt discussion which we're having. But let me just say that I know we get overly obsessed by technology. I personally believe technology is primarily half the story. The half the story is all about experience and how the adoption happens and how people, communities, country change and experience the technology they want to do that. And that's very fundamental to the way the technology will shape itself in coming future. Be it cloud native or be it 5G or any other technology which is going to come through, and it keeps changing. The important point we have to look out from is from the consumer point of view, which can be a retail customer, which can be a business customer, which can be a country, which can be an institution. And we have to see what problems are we going to solve with that technology? What experience are we going to provide with that technology? And what meaningful change are we going to get with the technology? That's the net of it, we need to look at it. That's my view. And that's where we have made big transformation. And when we use the word transformation, I saw that being used out there. But I always believe that transformation is like changing the engine of a plane when it's flying. It's not easy to do that. And I think, Mathangi, you talked about it, more depends upon transformation is more very glued with the people and the culture which drives those transformation. So to my sense, I think as we drive the technology or digitization, it's not just enabling the strategy of our customers, but it's becoming the pivotal point of every strategy in a B2B space. It's apt about us that how do we make sure that the technology, while we take it to the market, how they use it and how they get adapted to it. And that's what customer experience, which we have been charting our way in CISCO, is primarily not only giving them service, but making sure they adopt the technology and derive the value, what they get out of it. Having said that, I personally believe it's a journey. There is no digital switch, zero and ones out there. It's a long journey, and that journey will keep evolving and changing. Sometimes we need a course correction, sometimes we need a process correction, sometimes we need incremental corrections. But then it's a long journey. And when you talk about our people part of it, I think that's the key people. And I personally believe that it gives a huge opportunity for us in India. Let's look at for us in India. We Indians, I believe, is the hub of innovation in digital and technology. Trust me. We are in India or in some other country, but we can be we are the hub of innovation out there. And it helps us to leapfrog our country, which we talk about Atmanirbhar or 5 trillion by 2025. I'm not sure now we had a 1-year break of COVID, will we reach out there or not? But that's one of the biggest needle mover for us, how we drive the technology. I think we should always look from an outside in perspective and the use cases perspective and what problem are we solving. Again, I'm just reiterating, be it for our consumer, are we giving new use cases in terms of healthcare, in terms of entertainment, which you talked about, in terms of gaming, do we build a network of Netflix of games out there? So what problem statement are we solving for the consumer? What problem statement are we solving for the community? Education has changed in last 1 year. When we go back, will it be same or will it be hybrid? Office is going to change out there. Healthcare. In India, we have such a huge problem in healthcare. 1:1,500 doctor to patient sort of a ratio we have. Can technology solve, can cloud native 5G solve those use cases for healthcare? And it's most undigitized right now. Let me just say that very open. And finally, to our businesses part of it, be it on any industry verticals, be it in logistics, be it in oil and gas, be it in any other manufacturing, can we solve those use cases properly? So let's work it outside in instead of just looking from an inside out.
Yeah, I think, thank you so much. for giving the perspective, particularly on adoption, because any technology is as good as it is used. If it is never used or used less, then that technology is obviously not working. So the adoption is very important, and over the years, especially in the telecom space, all the engineers and everybody have been very aware that adoption is so important, and therefore, hence the migration of people who are not so educated in using the telecom products, services, and so on and so forth. And that is because one has paid a huge amount of attention to adoption, whether it is in the B2C space or the B2B space. So I would, now that all the opening remarks are over, I would like to throw the discussion open, and I would like to invite anybody who would like to start on, we can discuss, should we create captive strengths or find solutions outside, and the eternal debate of private versus public versus multi-hybrid clouds system. Anybody is welcome to start the discussion.
Jagbir Singh, you're on mute.
Okay, so in sequential manner, maybe I can start. So first thing, thanks Sandeep, good to see you, and good to meet Mathangi. First time I'm meeting you and seeing you. I think coming back to the culture question, I'll take from there a little bit and then come back to the multi-cloud. I agree with, both Sandeep and Mathangi, but at the same time, I think we do as long as we have the open mindset, we want to learn, and we all know that life is always learning. Keep learning as much as we can. Be open for the experimentation. Be open to take some risk. If somebody feels there's a risk in the cloud, then let's take that. Keep doing the experimentation. Keep doing the innovation. So as long as we have these, sort of the mindset, then I don't see in having any cultural change in the organization for the cloud. And let's not underestimate us. Like we have moved from wireline to wireless, 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G. All we in telco and network, IT, convergence, everything we are doing. And one big benefit as our country, as India, I think we have, if you talk about the cloudification, or you talk about the cloud native, everything is around the software. So at least we guys are very good at software. We are very good at mathematics, and we are very good at learning. So I see no problem. It's only as long as we are open to learn, as long as we take that as a challenge to, change the culture of the organization, I see no problem actually, at least for us. Now, coming back to private versus public versus multi-cloud, I think it's going to be a journey again. There's no one single answer today. So it depends on the workloads, it depends on the application, it depends on the adoption of that organization. So if I take like telco application, for example, which are very sensitive to the latency, telco application which needs the high bandwidth. So I'll give you the example. For example, you take voltage services, voice over LTE. Take the HLR, HSS database, take the packet core, which is high bandwidth intensive. Take the signaling network, SBCs, DRAs, and that kind of things. So I think depending on the requirement, now these workloads, still I don't think that the public clouds or the hyperscale clouds, which are Google, Microsoft, Azure, etc., they can meet the requirement of the telco. No. So that is, maybe we are moving that direction, but today answer is no. And so that's the reason that these kind of application, the core requirement of the telco will continue. And similarly, even on the IT platform, like billing, charging, rating, that side also will continue to be in the private cloud. Until the public becomes, one is really the good, performance, and second is the cost effective. These are the two things. And in addition to that, actually in the telco network, we also have, even going forward for 5G, we are saying the mobile edge computing. You want to move as closer as possible to the application or to the workload or to the consumer or to the enterprise. Then the mobile edge compute will become very important, which will not be met by the public clouds. So it's going to be the coexistence of the public So for example, for AR, VR, for having the industrial IoT, for cloud gaming, for having the 5G applications, I think we need to have the edge computing. So that will be provided by the telcos, and maybe the control plane could be as part of the hyperscales, can go to the public cloud. But the user plane has to be near to the consumer, near to the application, near to be the enterprise. That is one. Second is, I think moving everything to the, hyperscale also will take time, because their performance, as I said, and the cost effectiveness, we have to see yet. Because like in telco, typically, I don't want to go too much in technical, but supporting number of IP addresses, supporting the SRIOV, supporting the netting, supporting the latency requirement. I think still we are far away to use the cloud native applications by using the public cloud. The another problem will be like nobody can throw whatever the workloads are running, which are having the good performance. So they will continue to be running, whether they are on the VMs or they are running on the cloud. And going forward, we can use the cloud native. So there's a combination of, for telco environment, of the VMs, clouds, and the cloud native going forward on the private as well as on the public. Same thing when the telco is offering to the enterprise. I think telcos are the, the prime, I would say, the interface to the enterprise customers. Today, whether through the, we give the internet connection, we give the solutions, we supply the routers, we supply whatever we supply. Actually, we meet the demand of the enterprise customers. So I think we have to work with them to give them the confidence to move to the public clouds, and maybe the combination of the hybrid, which is a private cloud. So I think they will also take time for their digital transformation, for their workload, for their application shifting on the cloud, but that is also going to be the mix of private and public.
Mr. Jagbir, thank you very much. And you have summed it very well, and you have covered the entire width and landscape of what the telco will be kind of doing. I agree with you that the private cloud will have its own role, and so will the public cloud. And we have to be close to the final user, whether it's enterprise or consumer. So may I request the other members also please share their views?
Maybe I can add on that,
Yeah,
Sandeep, if you're
sure.
okay with that. Yeah. And I think you summed it up, Jagbir. I mean, I don't think I can add too much in terms of the content here, because you've really summed it up from a telco perspective. Maybe just two things that I would throw in is, as you rightly said, the battlefield is really going to be around the edge now. The network edge, and what can we do at the edge closer to the user. And this is something that, I can see that the hyperscalers are trying to get into this space, but you have a great advantage, and you should really look at capitalizing on it, of course. And in the enterprise space specifically, one other ask, which we are also seeing at this point in time, is private networks. Most of the large enterprises are looking to get just the private networks established, and how can they get some of these cool applications, I would just call it cool, in preparation for 5G, for example. How can we get those for them, and in that context, which are very industry specific applications which really need the features of 5G, be it low latency or very high bandwidth, etc. And can telcos and equipment providers go beyond being connectivity and actually help in creating those applications on top of their platforms? Imagine if you had a platform where you could push some of these high-end value-added applications on top of the connectivity, then that would be the place that you could really make it a value add for your enterprise customers, rather than just providing that private network, for example. So that's something that I would say that's not yet tapped, and it's going to be the next battlefield, and maybe we should really look at capitalizing that space. As of course, systems integrators, we will be there to help support any of this, right? So, and this is what we are seeing in the market today. So that's what I would add in on top of whatever you said, Mr. Jagbir.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I think being from a telco background, I think people, the hyperscalers, ate lunch from our lunch boxes. And that's why, at least in a country like India, we're stuck on the $2 ARPU. The OTT players, and that's all, of course, history. But I point you made that at the edge and closer to the customer, how will the telcos be able to do their bit and keep the not keep the hyperscalers away, but do their bit. But at the end of the day, I always say in every forum that the person who owns the customer is the telco. The billing relationship is with the telco. Telco has put all these efforts, people like Mr. Jagbir, Singh, and all of us guys in the marketing and field and all that. We put all these things together and we pound the street for $2 per month. No, not fair, So we got to think in some whereas the AWSs and the Googles and the FBs of the world, they are sitting in their fancy offices in California and they're taking the lunch out of our lunchbox. So, Mr. Arora, please tell us. Yeah. Mr. Arora, please tell us.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Sukanta. Maybe I just want to add to that. The positive side, though, is that the trust remains with you, right? I mean,
yes.
If you ask the customer, who will they trust? Is it the telco or the hyperscaler? I mean, and as a customer, I can tell you, close your eyes and say it's the telco. And again, another point where you should capitalize. With that, I'll rest my case.
No, good, very good. So, Mr. Sandeep Arora, with request to have your views, please, on the subject.
Thanks for setting it up, and thanks, Mathangi. I think trust is a very important asset to have.
Sandeep, speak loudly, Sandeep.
Sorry, it's good to hear that I'm so soft at times, but no, I think trust is the most important asset. And we know there's nothing more important, the assets, than physical asset. Trust is the most important asset which telcos want. I'll just put a little twist to what you're saying, because so much of agreement it's not good for the health also at times. What we have to also understand is what customer values is changing. So when Sukanta, when you were in 2002 managing Idea, and at the time where customer value, and when I know Jagbir Singh have seen being 2 CTO and this is 3rd CTO, I don't know which 4th CTO in India is left over, because he's taken all the 3 telcos. But what I'm saying, what customer value over time has changed. We have to appreciate that. What he values, and how do we create value for that, and how do we capture value for that, is a very different phenomenon of monetization. And let's be honest about it. While I can say whatever about hyperscalers and all, but at the end of the day, why he's earning a higher EBITDA, or why is he earning a higher equity, and why is he has a higher PE than any of the telco, is because people perceive that he's providing higher value to them, while the trust is with the telco. So to that point, I would like to encourage and challenge ourselves, because I always believe that personal renewals come before professional renewals. I think, Sukanta, you were saying about that a little bit, but that's important for us to do that. So, and I think I agree with you, Mathangi. One thing which I really believe, that there will be another inflection point in the technology cycle, and that will be around the edge. Now, will edge eat the cloud, or will cloud we adopt the edge, and how will that work together? And that's going to be a big game in time to come, in 2 to 3 years, and we don't know how it will pan out. No one knows that. But the edge versus cloud will be a very distinctive way, because how you leverage your telco cloud, take it to the edge, and then the public cloud and drive it, it's going to be a very different business model. So that's one. Number 2, I think we should look, and I think Jagbir sir, we talked about it, we should look at creating this as a service platform, not like a monolithic network, and I know you have done that earlier. Create this as a service platform where you can drive, spin out application with agility and security fast enough so that the customer can consume it and able to get value out of it instant. Instead of taking a typical time of creating an application and taking a huge time. So can we create this as a service platform and spin off application? That's where the technology, that's what I'm saying, the usage of cloud native or cloud or multi-cloud, because I personally believe everything is going to go on multi-cloud. There's not going to be a single cloud at the end of the day. will be able to do that. So look at from a perspective of creating a service platform, how can we be agile and trustworthy enough in our security to spin out application based on consumer needs and the agility to have it with a robust process and systems about it. And finally, I'll say that at the end of the day, the first challenge which we faced when the unbundling of services happened, when platforms were there and when Apple unbundled the services stack, and earlier the telcos had the monopoly, but then the unbundling of the services happened over this platform, and then Google, Apple, everybody started unbundling those applications came in. That's where the challenge, and that's where we went. I think there is going to be another round where we see the devices getting connected overall, and those 5G services, which due to latency or the application or due to bandwidth requirement, will change again. So are we talking about the 6 billion devices, or we talk about the 50 billion devices to come, and how we can change the game out there and provide application churn out there is going to be seen out there. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sandeep. Thank you very much. I think a very good perspective from your side on the customer experience. We are kind of coming to the close of our discussion. So I'd like to just have closing comments from all of you. Maybe just one or two takes from this very interesting topic of how to cope with the new cloud native era. So may I, any one of you can go first, and just one or two things. It's like seeing the future a bit, what, as some of you alluded to, what will happen in the next, say 1 or 2 years. Because, we have to still live with the 4G environment for at least, in my opinion, 1.5 to 2 years before we actually go into 5G. 5G is such a different architecture with millimeter waves and massive MIMO and God knows what. It is not a little extension of 4G, So it is a completely new architecture. So in the new architecture, how all these rare elements of technology will fit in, and finally it will go to the customer and the customer experience. And you rightly also said that the handsets will have to change, because that is itself a big exercise in a country like India, and in a poor country like India. I don't know how everybody can afford the 5G handsets, So, any one or two points, closing comments from, and any one of you could kindly go first.
Okay, so from my side, I think number one is going to be like a hybrid cloud. Private plus the public going to coexist. Telcos are fully prepared actually to move to the cloudification, including the cloud native. And I think we are in front, or we can say that we are the front runner actually to serve the market, both consumer and enterprise, for all the cloud-based applications, whether it's, as I said, the cloud games, AR, VR, or we are saying like industrial IoT, we are saying 5G. And because we have actually mobile edge computing, at least the data centers. Because of our traditional telco infrastructure, actually we have 200, 300 data centers already available where we can go and put the mobile edge, which becomes very handy to support the 5G services and the future services which are around the cloud native based services. So, and we are as I said, we are the front runner in terms of educating our, like enterprise customers. As I think Mathangi said that, having the trust of the enterprise. So I think we have the trust of consumer, we have the trust of enterprise, and we have the infrastructure available. And we are anyway technology-oriented company always, telcos. So we will be the first one to adopt and take care of the market and grow with the market. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ma'am, if you please go with your comments.
Sure, and I think I'll add to the fact that we should really, think about, collaborate more rather than being ousted by the hyperscalers. That's, I would say, number one takeaway from this. That is enough for everybody to play in this together, and that is enough for everybody to up the game. Take it as just increasing the bar of learning more than anything else, and to really think about, are we using the power of the cloud? That's really what I would say is the takeaway.
Yeah, I think you made a very, very important point. Two important. One is we should collaborate. So it's a win-win, and both of us win. Last time we collaborated, it was win-lose. So we want to go from win-lose to win-win when we collaborate with the hyperscaler.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I agree.
The other important point you
Agree.
raised, yeah, I mean, you are one of the few people who talked about the power of the cloud. You know, that's an interesting topic, and maybe I would separately tell Voice and Data to put as a topic. The power of the cloud is immense. In fact, the very first product which was actually technically cloud was the Gmail. Why was it the cloud? Because you could go to Jakarta and from a small dhaba, if there was connectivity, just switch on their terminal device, not yours. You don't even have a, let's say you've lost your phone, and download your Gmail and have a look at it. You don't have to be sitting in Delhi or Bombay to do that. So that was really truly the cloud, which of course there was many years back. So I think the power of the cloud is something we need to really understand. It's really far bigger than anything else.
Sukanta, you got muted.
Yeah.
Thing they do is to bring down costs of the system. The second most important thing they do is to enhance the system. And the third most important thing is that all technology has to be green compliant, because otherwise it will not have future. So I think what cloud really does is actually bring down the costs. If you look at it in many, many ways, you know, and that is another very important aspect of the cloud. So may I request Mr. Sandeep Arora to give his closing comments, and then with that we will kind of finish off. You know.
Thanks for hosting it again. No, I'll just say I think everything has been said, but I always believe in one thing, which I truly believe, because we need to change ourselves. It's in the journey. Always keep challenging the sacred cows in ourselves. It's important to do that, and let's leverage the assets which we have, the strengths which we have, which is the customer hold or the trust or the proximity to the customer, and build an outside and view what customers are going to value in 2 to 3 years and build it right now. Look at that way and just technology. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, that at the end of the day, the assets are what the customer will be able to use, and how to be able to create the trust while using all these advanced technologies. So I think with that, we have also run out of time, and I would like to thank all the panelists, all my esteemed panelists, for their contribution in today's important topic. And I would like to thank Cyber Media and Voice and Data for giving me and all of you this opportunity in this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.